Hi everybody, it's Mrs. Walsh. I'm here in my studio getting started on our first project called Twisted Tubes. So now for this project you're going to need any size piece of paper you need. You could choose small to start, and if you want to do another one, do it larger just to get the hang of it. It's up to you which way you want to go. You're going to need a marker, a skinny marker, or you could use colored pencil if you want. We're going to start out with a very simple line. So we're going to go along the left side of the page. You could go to the bottom, the middle, to the top. I'm going to go down a little bit lower, and I'm going to do a soft curved line. I'm not going to get like roller coaster, more like rolling hills. Okay. Then I'm going to take my marker or my colored pencil, and I'm going to start away from the end of the line. So I'm going to make some small dots on here, and I'm going to vary the distances. Some of them will be close together, some will be further apart. You can vary it any way you like. You don't have to do a line just like mine. You can start yours at the top or end at the bottom, whatever makes you happy, okay? All right, so now the third step is going to be starting above the pencil line where it ends, where this is. You're going to start above it and come down till you hit the dot. Now you're going to go right back up, and you're going to kind of leapfrog from one dot to the next. You could think of it as a little flea jumping from one dot to the next. And just go along, and you don't have to go fast. Try to keep it very controlled. And then you're going to end above the pencil line. This is where your pencil line ends. You want to always start and end above the pencil line. So then I'm going to do my next row. Now for you guys, I would do it in the same black ink or your colored pencil. I'm going to do it with a red so that you can see the difference from one row to the next. So as I'm coming up and going back to the same dot, I'm retracing right up that line. I want to keep these really attached. If I start to do some like looping and make a loop here, then I'm going to have a hole. I want these to be solid tubes when I'm done. So I'm going to come up, I'm going to continue, and I'm going to go right back up. Come down to the dot. I'm tracing that line again, coming around, coming back. I'm going back up, and just keep on going. Now I'm on the end of it, so I'm going to again end above the last mark I made. Then I'm going to go back, and I'm going to keep doing this until I run out of space. So I'm coming back down to my dot, coming back up my line. I'm creating a nice, consistent tube. Okay, I want to make sure that there's no spaces or gaps in between my tubes. Now when I get up here, notice that I've gone off the page. I'm just going to imagine that I'm still drawing. And I'm going to come down to that dot again, come back up, and I'm going to continue the same way. And go back to my dot, come straight up my line, and right back down. Now you notice it's starting to get a little squishy in here. That's okay. Now we're going to continue up, and again end above the last mark. So you want to have them moving up. All right, then we're back to the next row. I'm going to come up again, come back down into that spot, and I'm going to just keep on going, tracing back up. Do I have to go all the way to the dot? Not really. As long as I go back enough that I'm going to come right back up that same direction. So I'm going to come around, and wherever it seems natural to come down, I'm going to keep on going. If you make a little tiny loop, just fill it in, not a big deal. Imagine you're continuing to draw. I'm going to come in from the edge, go back to that main line, go back up and over, come back in, come back up. Now, this is where it starts to get a little tricky. Do you see how I came back down, and now when I come up, I hit the other tube? I'm going to just let it do that, and I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to continue until I go off the page. So now this tube here has gotten pinched off. Now next time, this one will probably end. So I'm going to go all the way back over to my side. I'm going to start up top. Again, above. Okay, so I'm going up and above, and I'm coming back down. I'm coming back up and down, up that same line, down. Now, I wouldn't make these too close together. You can vary them, but I wouldn't do too much of that too close together. Now, if I continue this tube and I'm coming around, I can come in, but I really can't make a tube. So that's the side of this tube. That little space is the side of this tube. So I'm going to come up, come back around. Now this is the end of that tube, so this is the space between. So I'm going to come in, go back up. So this is part of that tube, this is part of that tube. I'm going to continue around. Come back in, go back up. Now I'm coming around, going straight back up. Now this is where I told you, now it's going to start to end. So as I come back and around, this one has ended now, and then this one has ended here. So I'm going to come back down, go back up, and that's going to close that off. So these are all three of these are totally turned off now. These are two separate tubes here. So when I come back over here, I'm going to go in, go up. Imagine I'm coming back around, coming in, going back up. Imagine I'm coming around, and then go back up. Okay, so that's going to give me all of my tubes. Now when I get over to here, I can't go in there anymore. Here I can come in, but I have to go straight back out. So that's just going to be the next ring. This is the next ring for this side. So that's all I have to do. Now I'm going to turn it around. And I'm going to do the other side. So now I'm going to do it the same way. Now I'll go back and cover these red ones with the black line, but you can just follow along. And I'm going to start above my pencil line, come down, go up, come back to my dot, come around, and I'm using the same dots. I'm just filling in the other side. So I have to make sure I stay on that same side, come down, go back up that line again, come around, go back up. That's the most important thing because you want these tubes to look continuous. So now my tube is extending to the other side now. So I'm going to come back over here, come up a little ways, come back to my first dot, come back up, and just keep doing that until your whole page is done. Now I'm starting to end on the top edge. That's where we'll end up. I'm going to come back. Now this one, I can't get too far in there. I'm going to come up and just continue again. Now you notice I'm not going all the way back to the dot. That's okay, as long as I stay on that same line. Okay, now we can't get in here anymore, so we're just going to start up here, come back around, go back. Now I have to go off the edge, imagining I'm still drawing. Come in, go back straight up, pretend I'm still drawing. Whenever I go off the page, I just want to mimic that motion still. Now if you notice here, this one got pinched off. Perfectly okay. Alright, so then I'm coming up and I'm adding to this tube. I'm coming up, adding to this tube. Gonna come around, coming in here, and then I'm just going back up. Okay, so now if I came from up here, I would come around and I would go in, go up and off. Imagine I'm coming around, I would come in, go up, come around. So I would come back in here, go back up. And so I'm just doing the same thing. It's just that now this one has ended. This one has ended here. Come up, come around, come up and come around. Now there's nowhere else for it to go. We're all done. So now I'm going to take my eraser, okay, and we're going to just eliminate that pencil line that's in the center because we want this to be just a straight grouping of tubes. So we don't want to divide that in the middle. Okay, so once you get to this point, you now have all your tubes done. Some of them have shortened, some of them have been cut off. Okay, so it's one continuous tube. So before I start color, I'm going to go back and I'm going to go over my red lines. Now these are what you will do in one color. I just wanted you to see how I was doing each row. Okay, so I'm just going to finish those up and then we'll start on the color. Okay, so I'll finish the rest of that and I'll show it to you when it's completely done. But right now I'm going to start thinking about my colors. I could do two colors. These are complementary colors. I could just do two of my favorite colors. I could do a different group of colors on each one. You could pick two colors and do the whole thing in those two colors. If you want to do one whole tube in one color, that's perfectly okay. So I'm going to start over here. So I'm going to start with this tube. Okay, well, why don't we start in the middle? I'm going to start at the end of this tube. And I'm going to put a very light layer of red on there. Now, this tube is round. That's why we have these contour lines showing us that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go darker on my outside edges just by putting more layers, and I'm going to leave the center light. Then I'm going to go to my next color. And again, I'm going to put a very light layer all the way across. And then I'm going to go back to my edge. This is where it's going down the side of the tube. So we want to have this a little darker, getting lighter as it comes up to the center. And then I'm going to go over to the other side, dark, fade to light in the center. Okay, that just means don't press as much. But we don't want to see like stripies. We want to be able to see a dark value, a mid value, and then a lighter value. It doesn't have to be white. It's a green tube, so it's going to have a little green in there wherever the light is. Now, as you notice, the tube is getting wider. As the tube gets wider, the shadow and the light get wider as well. So we're going to do our next layer. So we're going to just do a very, very light layer of value all the way across. We just talked about value. Okay, it describes the dimension of a form, the third dimension. It gives us that illusion. We're going to go dark in the deepest areas because darker values recede from our eye. Lighter values come towards our eye. Okay, so if you notice, I keep putting light layers, and what I'm trying to do, it's almost like a flashlight beam. If there's more surface, the light is going to hit it. So if it's narrower, the light area is going to be narrower, getting wider, and then this is the widest part, so it'll get much wider here. So I'm going to go across my middles. And remember, this is one continuous tube. So we want it to appear to be continuous. So we're going to keep this darker value, come out about the same distance, and then let it fade to light. We're going to go over here, and we want to keep this darker value, and then fade towards the light. Now you still want to go to the end of your section, because we don't want to have a white line outlining it. But if you notice, I can go much darker and then just slowly lift my pencil up so I get this nice mid value. So dark, fade to light. And just keep tweaking it until you get it just right. But if you notice, you can see that the light is getting wider as the tube gets wider. So we're going to continue on until we get this whole drawing done. So you can choose any colors that you like. You could do every tube a different value, a different color, but the values have to stay consistent. Okay, so you want to make sure that your eye is going to follow smoothly down the shadows, smoothly down that center, and just making sure that if it gets wider, then the light gets wider. So on this one, it would get much wider at the end here with the light and get narrower as it goes to the narrow end. Okay, so I'm going to continue working on this and I will post it for you. I would like for you guys to upload this to your Adsonia account and post your photo so that we can all share, see what everybody's come up with for color schemes. Okay, but I want to see really good craftsmanship. You want it to be super, super clean. So make sure that you're paying attention to your edges and keep your values really consistent. All right, try to have fun with it, and I will check in with you soon. Have a great day, guys. Stay healthy.